So did you take part in any traditional activities or customs, Tom, growing up?
I'd have to say yes. We grew up in a bush. We didn't live in a town itself. We always lived a little ways away from town, 1 or 2 miles out of town. And my dad was a trapper, so he spent a lot of his time in the bush. I didn't see a lot of him. And my mom, of course, worked wherever she can. But she helped out too. She helped out when they made moose hides and stuff like that. And when I was just a small kid, I used to watch them going through the process of making a moose hide, making hide for moccasins and for mitts. And sometimes they'd make vests and jackets, but it took a lot to make a jacket, because it takes a lot of leather to make that. Yeah, we did a lot of fishing. I started out setting snares for rabbits, and I'd go and check my snares after school, and kind of fed my family after that, because my dad got sick. He had some kind of lung disease. So, and then we hunted jackfish in the springtime. They'd be spawning, and their backs would stick out of the water, and there would be about 2 or 3 of them abreast with their backs out of the water. So then we'd have a spear with a long nail on it, and we'd spear them, or else we'd just take a long stick and hit them, and we'd get the jackfish. That's how we'd get them. And if we didn't have a net, many times people didn't have nets, or they didn't have a boat, so we would get fish that way. And I did a lot of hunting. In wintertime, there was what we call ptarmigan, and that's what we would hunt. They're kind of like chickens, but they're white. The only thing is they have black wingtips and black beaks. So that's how you could see them in the snow. Otherwise, they'd be invisible.
How is fishing different? How is it different then compared to now?
When people had their own net, they went and set a net. In the summertime, they'd have to check it every day because the water's warm, and the fish would spoil right away. When they drowned, they'd be no good. In wintertime, you could leave your net in for a few days because the water's cold. And when we fished in winter, we'd cut a hole in the ice, and we'd have this thing called a jigger. It's made out of wood, and it's got a spring in it with a little teeth on one end. You pull that thing, and it'd go like this, and that thing would be under the ice, and it would catch the ice on top like this, and it would push it forward. And you tie a string at the end of it, about 100-foot cord, and when you get it 100 feet, that's usually the length of the nets, and it's got a little knocker at the end, so you pull that string like this and it knocks on the ice, and then you can tell where it's coming from. If it's windy, it's hard to tell, so it's got to be calm, a calm day when you go and put a net in, because there's a bunch of snow and you can't see with that jigger. So when you scrape the snow off, when you hear that knock, you scrape the snow off, then you scrape the ice with your latranche. Then you look like this, get all the light away from you, and then you could see the jigger. Then that's where you cut the hole. You pull that jigger out, and then you got a string from one hole to another. Then you pull your net in, and then you leave it overnight or 2 nights. Then you go pull it out and the fish. That's how we fished in the winter. But in the summertime, we'd have to fish in deep spots because the fish have to go where the water's cold enough. So we'd leave it overnight like that, and we'd go and check it in the morning. People still do that in Alacross. They commercial fish. They still set their nets like that in wintertime. And I think there's some commercial fishing that's happening in the summer. Not a lot of people fish today. The young people haven't picked up that custom, if you will, or that way of life. It's more you go to the store and buy food than anything. And the young people now go to the mines to go to work and stuff like that. And a lot of them are teachers, who have gone to university. So I guess the change is that it's not being done as much as it used to be done. And possibly the reason for that also is not only because the young people are not picking it up, but there's not as many fish as there used to be. And it can't really sustain a lot of fishermen. People do fish yet. That would be the big difference, I guess. And the big difference of keeping fish in the summertime, they used to cut big chunks of ice, and they'd have an ice house made out of wood, and they'd keep all the ice there, and then they'd throw sawdust on top of that ice so it won't melt. And that's how they'd keep fish, with ice in the summertime so it wouldn't spoil. Now you have, of course, deep freezers. It's a lot easier to fish and keep the fish that way.